Vanished in Vegas, the house always watches Las Vegas doesn't sleep. It calculates. From the 22nd floor of the Bellagio, the strip looked like a river of electricity. Neon veins pulsed through glass towers, limos glided like silent predators. Somewhere below, a bachelor party screamed victory over a blackjack hand they would statistically lose back within the hour. My name is Sophia Reyes. I don't gamble, I manage gamblers. At 35, I was one of the youngest high-stakes casino hosts on the strip. My job wasn't to deal cards, it was to deal egos. Billionaires, oil heirs, crypto kings, hedge fund wolves, they came to Vegas to feel invincible. I made sure they kept feeling that way long enough to lose 7 figures with a smile. You don't survive in this city by being naive, you survive by watching, and I had been watching my husband for months. Derek Malone. Derek used to be someone. 10 years ago, he was a name whispered in poker rooms from Atlantic City to Macau, a cold reader, aggressive, brilliant under pressure, but poker is math and psychology, and eventually math wins. He started chasing losses, then chasing shortcuts. When I met him, he still carried the aura of potential. I mistook ego for confidence. By year 3 of marriage, I realized something ugly. He hadn't married me for love, he married me for access. Through me, he got into private games. Through me, he met whales. Through me, he got backed when no one else would front him buy-ins. Through me, he drained $600,000 of our joint savings, investing in games he swore were guaranteed. They weren't. The night I caught him cheating, it wasn't dramatic. No lipstick on collars, just a text message preview lighting up his phone on the kitchen counter. Miss you already. Next time, no hotel cameras, winking face. My stomach didn't drop. It hardened. When he walked in, I was sitting at the island with his phone in front of me. Who is she? I asked calmly. He didn't deny it. He pivoted. It's not what you think. It always is. The divorce threat. 2 weeks later, I met with an attorney. I didn't tell Derek immediately, but he knew something shifted. The way I stopped covering his buy-ins, the way I separated our finances, the way I stopped answering when he asked which whales were flying in that weekend. One night he cornered me in our Summerlin kitchen. You're not serious about divorce, he said. I am. His face changed, not heartbreak, calculation. Think about what that does to my reputation, he snapped. I laughed. You mean what you did to it? He didn't yell, he didn't threaten, he just stared at me for a long moment. And that's when I felt it, cold, like something turning behind his eyes. The laptop. 3 nights later, I was booking a villa comp for a Macau investor when Derek's laptop pinged from the dining table. He rarely left it unattended. A crypto wallet notification flashed on the screen. I shouldn't have looked, but survival isn't polite. The message preview: escrow confirmed, $50K received, balance due upon completion. Desert site preferred. My pulse slowed, not panic, focus. I opened the laptop. He hadn't logged out of an encrypted browser session. The chat thread was open. Username: Saguaro Ghost Derek. Make it look like a desert overdose. No mess, no drama. $100K total. Crypto only. Response: need schedule. Confirm target routine. Attached was a photo of me walking into the Bellagio employee entrance. Time stamped 2 days earlier. For a moment the world didn't tilt, it sharpened. He wasn't bluffing, he wasn't fantasizing, he had already paid half. Why I didn't scream? People assume fear comes first. It doesn't, strategy does. I didn't confront him, I didn't call him out, I copied everything. Wallet addresses, transaction hashes. Encrypted chat logs, metadata. I forwarded it to a secure drive I kept for high-roller NDAs, then I closed the laptop exactly how I found it. When Derek came home that night, I kissed him on the cheek. He smiled like nothing had changed. I smiled back because now the game had rules and I don't lose games. Metro PD. The next morning, I didn't go to HR, I didn't go to divorce court, I drove to Metro, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Organized Crime Unit. I requested Detective Marcus Shaw. Former FBI, now consulting occasionally with casino security task forces. He once told me over coffee, if you ever see something that smells bigger than domestic drama, call me. This smelled like the Mojave. When I laid the printed transcripts on his desk, he didn't react immediately. He read everything, twice, then leaned back. He hired a dark web contractor, Shaw said quietly. Yes, he paid in crypto, yes, and he specified desert staging. Yes, Shaw's jaw tightened. This isn't amateur rage, this is premeditated conspiracy. I know, he studied me carefully. You're in danger, I shook my head. No, he raised an eyebrow, he thinks I am. Silence, then slowly, very slowly, he said, we could use this. The plan, the idea wasn't mine. It was Shaw's, we let him think it's done, he said. We control the narrative, we control the scene. We follow the money. My boss at the Bellagio, Vincent Hale, retired FBI counterintelligence, agreed within 5 minutes of hearing the evidence. Vegas doesn't tolerate freelance murder plots targeting employees, Hale said flatly, especially hosts managing 9-figure clients. Insurance would cooperate quietly, Metro would stage. Coroner would sign off on sealed report pending toxicology. Headline, casino host found dead in apparent desert overdose. Derek would collect and celebrate and expose himself, the risk. If the hitman got suspicious, if Derek panicked, if word leaked, I looked at Shaw. What's the survival rate on this plan? He met my eyes. High. If you trust us, I thought about Derek's message. No mess, no drama. I smiled slightly. Oh, I said. There's going to be drama. Red Rock Canyon. 2 weeks later, I disappeared. Officially, I had taken a weekend retreat to decompress. Unofficially, Metro staged a cabin scene near Red Rock Canyon, an EMT report, an overdose kit planted, a body bag zipped, not with me inside, but weighted and transported discreetly. Coroner statement pending toxicology. Media fed carefully. The Strip reacted instantly. Within hours, my phone, now in police custody, exploded with messages. Derek arrived at the scene late. On purpose, he performed grief convincingly, but surveillance cameras captured something interesting. No shock, just confirmation. That night, I watched the news from a safe house. My own photo flashed across the screen. Dead at 35. Cause, suspected overdose. Vegas loves a fallen angel story. The policy. 2 days later, Derek contacted our insurance provider. $2.5 million life policy. Primary beneficiary, him. He sounded devastated on the call. Metro recorded everything. He didn't wait for final toxicology. He pushed aggressively. Within 3 weeks, payout processing began. Crypto wallet activity spiked simultaneously. Final $50K payment transferred. Message to Saguaro Ghost, it's done. That was his mistake. He celebrated too soon. 2 months later, I grew my hair darker, changed posture, learned patience. From a distance, I watched Derek move his mistress into our Summerlin house. Watched him host a private high-roller game using my client connections. Watched him toast to fresh starts. He thought the desert buried me. He forgot something about Vegas. The desert keeps secrets, the casinos don't. 2 months after my death, he hosted a $5 million buy-in private game in a hidden Bellagio salon. Invite only, whales, crypto millionaires, oil heirs. The kind of table where reputations are currency. Metro and casino security coordinated quietly, SWAT positioned discreetly, lights timed. I stood behind the service corridor door, heart steady. Not racing because fear had passed. Now came execution. The lights dimmed mid-hand, players looked up annoyed, then the service door opened and I walked in, alive, behind me armed officers. Derek looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. I smiled. Fold, I said softly. Vanished in Vegas. The tell. When you've spent years around professional gamblers, you learn one thing: everyone has a tell. A twitch, a pause, a breath they can't control when the stakes turn lethal. Derek's tell was his jaw. It locked when he realized he'd lost. And when I stepped into that private Bellagio salon, alive, his jaw tightened so hard I thought it might crack. The poker table froze, chips mid-stack, cards half lifted. Millionaires blinking under chandelier light. One of the oil heirs laughed nervously. What the hell is this, a stunt? Then SWAT moved in. Las Vegas Metro. Hands where we can see them. Chairs scraped violently. One player bolted toward the exit, stopped immediately by 2 armed officers. He wasn't part of the plot, just allergic to law enforcement. Derek didn't run. He stared at me like physics had betrayed him. You're dead, he whispered. I tilted my head slightly. Not very. Detective Marcus Shaw stepped beside me. Derek Malone, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, and insurance fraud. That's when Derek's mask cracked. Wait, this is insane, he said quickly. She's clearly alive. There was no murder. Shaw didn't blink. You paid for one. Cuffs clicked. The room erupted into chaotic whispers. Phones came out. Security shut down signal boosters immediately. No one leaves a $5 million table without paperwork, and no one hires a hitman and walks away clean. The walk through the casino. They walked Derek through the casino floor intentionally, not the back corridor, not discreetly, past baccarat tables, past roulette wheels. Past tourists filming fountains. Whispers spread faster than slot machine lights. Isn't that the poker guy? Didn't his wife die? That's her, isn't it? Oh my God, Vegas feeds on spectacle. And tonight it had prime rib. I followed behind Shaw, flanked by security. Players stared at me like I'd crawled out of the grave, which in a way I had. Processing Metro processed Derek quickly. No bail, too much digital evidence, too much money involved, too much flight risk. His lawyer arrived within 2 hours, expensive, smooth, annoyed. We're filing immediate motions, the lawyer snapped. This is entrapment. Shaw didn't even look up. Entrapment requires us suggesting the crime, he said calmly. Your client suggested it. Paid for it and confirmed completion. I watched through the observation window as Derek paced. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked small, not furious, cornered. The dark web contractor, but Derek wasn't the only piece. The username Saguaro Ghost wasn't random. Metro's cyber unit traced wallet movements. The $50,000 final payment moved through 3 mixers, then reassembled in a consolidated wallet linked to prior suspicious transfers. Shaw brought me into the briefing room 2 days later. We've seen this signature before, he said, tapping the screen. Desert staging, overdose narrative, crypto escrow, it's a pattern. My stomach tightened. How many? 4 suspected cases in Nevada and Arizona, 2 confirmed fatalities. Cold slid down my spine. Derek hadn't just hired a random killer, he hired a professional. And we're close, I asked. Shaw nodded slowly. He made one mistake. What? He trusted Derek. The mistress, her name was Lana Pierce, 28. Cocktail waitress turned lifestyle consultant. She moved into my Summerlin home less than 2 weeks after my staged death. When Metro raided the house, she was still wearing my robe. That detail shouldn't have mattered, but it did. They found new furniture receipts, jewelry purchases, crypto deposits matching Derek's wallet withdrawals. She claimed ignorance. I thought he inherited money, she said tearfully. Shaw's expression didn't change. You thought he inherited it 2 weeks after his wife overdosed? Silence. She folded faster than Derek. I didn't know about a hitman, she insisted. He just said he needed her gone. Needed, the word hung like smoke. Media storm within 48 hours, national headlines exploded. Vegas casino host fakes death to expose murder plot. Cable news panels debated morality. Was it vigilante justice? Brilliant law enforcement strategy. Insurance companies issued statements clarifying no final payout had been completed. The Bellagio remained quiet publicly. Privately, Vincent Hale called me into his office. He closed the door. You understand this changes your position here. I figured. He studied me. You're not fired. That surprised me. You're elevated. I blinked. Your name just became a brand. Vegas doesn't waste myth. Derek's defense. Derek's legal team pivoted hard. Argument, there was no actual murder, therefore no real victim. Therefore reduced charges. Shaw laughed when he heard that. Conspiracy doesn't require success, he told me. Only intent and action, and we had both encrypted chats, crypto transfers. Surveillance photos Derek provided of my routine, audio from the insurance call, video of him celebrating payout processing at a private dinner, but the real nail. The message sent after my staged death, it's done. Intent, confirmation, completion. The first crack 2 weeks into detention, Derek requested to see me. Against Shaw's advice, I agreed. We met in a secured interview room. He looked exhausted. You ruined everything, he said quietly. I laughed once. You hired someone to kill me, he leaned forward. You were going to take everything. I stared at him. You had $600,000 of my money, my clients, my reputation. You were leaving me with nothing. The honesty stunned me, not remorse, not guilt. Fear of losing access. You don't even hear yourself, I said softly. He swallowed. You think I'm the only one in this town who's done worse? That sentence echoed. Who else? I asked calmly. His eyes flickered, jaw tightening. He looked away, and suddenly I knew. Derek hadn't been thinking big enough to orchestrate something this clean. Someone had helped him. The bigger game. Shaw confirmed my suspicion days later. Financial forensics flagged something unusual. The escrow wallet Derek used had previously received deposits from an IP range traced near a private gaming club off-strip. Not illegal, but known for hosting ultra-exclusive games. Games Derek had never qualified for a loan unless someone backed him. Who introduced him to Saguaro Ghost? Shaw asked. I thought about it. About Derek's sudden confidence 2 months before I found the laptop. About the new private games he'd been invited to. About the older man who once shook his hand too firmly at a charity tournament. Name Victor Klein, professional gambler turned consultant. Whispers said he facilitated more than games. He facilitated problems. The setup within the setup. Shaw leaned back in his chair. If Klein's connected, this gets bigger. How big? Organized crime adjacent. Vegas cleaned up in the 2000s, but shadows don't disappear, they adapt. If Derek flips, Shaw said slowly, we can reach the contractor network. I crossed my arms. And if he does, Shaw's eyes hardened. Then he does 40 years. Lana's bargain. 3 days later, Lana requested a deal. She'd overheard something. Victor Klein had been at our house twice, once before my death, once after. Second visit included celebration and something else. A warning, make sure the desert story sticks, Klein had said. My pulse slowed. The hitman wasn't freelance, he was connected. And Derek might have thought he was buying a service, but he had stepped into someone else's network. Vegas doesn't like independent operators. The realization late that night, alone in my condo, I replayed everything. Derek wasn't brilliant, he was desperate, and desperate men borrow power. Someone had offered him a solution. Someone with infrastructure. The question wasn't just who wanted me dead. The question was who wanted leverage over Derek, and why. I poured a glass of bourbon, raised it toward the glowing strip. You should have folded, I whispered, but this game was no longer about my marriage. It was about dismantling something older, something that had survived long before Derek panicked. And might still be running games behind velvet ropes. Vanished in Vegas. Velvet rooms. Las Vegas sells illusion, but the real deals are never made under chandeliers. They're made behind soundproof doors where cameras malfunction and no one asks who's backing the table. Victor Klein operated in those rooms. The man behind the curtain, Victor Klein, was 62, silver-haired, sharp as cut glass. Officially, he was a private gaming consultant. Unofficially, he brokered access to money, to players, to problems disappearing. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, he didn't need to be. His power lived in introductions. Shaw slid a folder across the conference table to me. 3 decades in Vegas, he said. No convictions, always adjacent to something dirty. Never inside it. Photos, charity galas, private jets, high-roller tournaments, and one image that made my stomach tight. Victor shaking Derek's hand at a small invitational tournament 8 months ago. 8 months, right around the time Derek's losses spiraled. Derek's choice Metro applied pressure. No bail. Mounting charges, 40-year exposure. Then Shaw made the offer. Flip on Klein, give us the contractor network, we'll recommend cooperation. Derek hesitated for 3 days. On the 4th, he asked for another meeting with me. This time he looked less angry, more frightened. You don't understand who you're pushing, he said quietly. I leaned back in my chair. Explain it to me, he swallowed. Klein isn't just games, he connects debtors to solutions. What kind of solutions? Disappearances, insurance plays, visa problems. Quiet fixes, and you, I asked evenly. I owed people real money, not just you. That was new. How much? He looked down. 2.3 million. Ice ran through me. To who? He hesitated. Crypto lenders, backed by Klein. Now it made sense. Derek hadn't just been desperate to keep me from divorcing him. He needed the life insurance payout to cover gambling debts tied to a network that didn't accept excuses. My overdose wasn't just profit, it was survival. The private club Klein's operations centered around a members-only gaming lounge called the Mariner's Room. Technically, it was a private event space, legally gray, entry by invitation only. No social media, no signage, but Wales knew, and so did enforcers. Metro couldn't raid it without probable cause. They needed something active, something transactional, something illegal. That's where I came back in. The proposal you want me to host, I asked Shaw. He nodded. Klein respects access. You still control high-roller pipelines. If you request a table at the Mariner's Room, he'll listen. And we wire it, fully. I stared at the strip through the conference room window. I had already faked my death once. Now I was volunteering to walk into the room where my murder had likely been facilitated. Am I bait? I asked calmly. Shaw didn't sugarcoat it. Yes, Vegas runs on risk. And I don't ask players to take risks I won't take myself. Fine, I said, let's deal. Back from the dead, publicly by now, the media cycle had stabilized. I'd done interviews, controlled ones. I leaned into the legend just enough to weaponize it. The woman who outplayed her husband, the casino host who staged her own death. The narrative gave me something valuable, notoriety. And notoriety gets invitations. 3 days after my latest interview aired, Victor Klein requested a meeting, not at the Mariner's Room, at a quiet steakhouse off-strip, neutral ground. Dinner with the devil. Victor arrived precisely on time. Navy suit, subtle cufflinks, no visible security. He smiled as he approached the table. Ms. Reyes, he said smoothly. Hard to believe I'm dining with a ghost. I charge extra for hauntings, I replied evenly. He chuckled, sharp eyes measuring. I admire strategy, he said. You handled your husband decisively. You introduced him to certain people, I said calmly. He didn't blink. I introduced many people. Did you introduce him to Saguaro Ghost? A flicker. Minimal, but there, I don't involve myself in online nonsense, he replied. Lie, professional gamblers know lies the way surgeons know anatomy. Derek owed money, I said. Your lenders, silence. Then he leaned forward slightly. Your husband made poor decisions, I simply offered liquidity. At interest rates that required murder to repay, his expression cooled. You're walking a thin line, I smiled faintly. I already died once. The tension thickened, then he shifted tone. You're a valuable asset in this city. You could align with better players. There it is, I said softly, recruitment. He wasn't worried about exposure. He was evaluating whether I could be leveraged. What would alignment look like? I asked casually. His eyes sharpened. Exclusive tables, offshore liquidity, high-velocity crypto play, less regulation. He wanted access to my whales. He wanted scale, and if I joined, my attempted murder would become inconvenient history. I leaned back. I'll consider hosting at the Mariner's room. He smiled. Good, the wire metro wired me for the next meeting. Full audio, micro transmitter in my pendant, surveillance teams positioned blocks away. The Mariner's room entrance was disguised behind a members-only cigar lounge. Inside, velvet walls, low lighting, no windows, private dealers, no visible cameras. But we had warrants now tied to Derek's cooperation statement and Lana's testimony. The game was already underway when I arrived. 5 players, $1 million stacks. Victor stood as I entered. Gentlemen, he announced lightly, the woman who beat death. Polite laughter. I took a seat, cards slid, whiskey poured, conversation stayed surface level. Until Victor leaned close during a shuffle. You ever regret not staying dead? He murmured. My pulse didn't change. Only when I'm bored, he smiled thinly. Your husband lacked nerve. You don't, and Saguaro Ghost? I asked softly. The dealer's hands paused almost imperceptibly. Victor didn't answer, but he didn't deny it either. Instead, he said, some people in this town solve problems efficiently. That was enough. Probable cause shifted into something stronger. Conspiracy language, operational language. The slip halfway through the night, one of the players, drunk, overconfident, laughed too loudly. Hell, Vic, you cleaned up that desert mess quick, he said. The table went still. Victor's eyes flicked toward him, warning too late. What desert mess? I asked lightly. The player waved it off. Nothing, but Victor's jaw tightened, and I knew. They had facilitated more than introductions. They had managed outcomes. The raid Shaw waited for confirmation. When I touched my pendant twice, the signal metro moved. Doors burst inward. Las Vegas Metro, hands up, chaos exploded. Chips flying, players scrambling, dealers frozen. Victor didn't run. He stood slowly, hands raised, expression unreadable. As officers secured the room, Shaw approached him calmly. Victor Klein, you're under arrest for conspiracy, illegal gambling operations, loan sharking, and accessory to attempted murder. Victor glanced at me, not angry, impressed. You play long games, he said quietly. I host them, I replied. The twist as Victor was escorted out, he leaned slightly toward me. You think this ends it, he murmured, my stomach tightened. What does that mean? He smiled faintly. Ghosts attract hunters. Then he was gone. That night Metro confirmed something chilling. The crypto wallet linked to Saguaro Ghost had just moved funds. After Victor's arrest, which meant one thing, the contractor network was still active and someone else had access. I stood on my balcony overlooking the strip again. The lights glittered. Vegas looked unchanged, but I knew better. We had cut off one head and something else was watching. Vanished in Vegas ghost protocol. Vegas pretends it's loud, but the real danger is silent. It waits between transactions, between glances, between breaths. Victor Klein's arrest should have ended it. Instead, it triggered something worse. The wallet that moved 2 hours after Klein was processed, Metro's cyber unit flagged activity on the Saguaro Ghost wallet. A transfer, small, precise. $12,400 in crypto moved to a new address that hadn't previously appeared in the case. Not panic money, not liquidation. Signal money. Someone was still operational. Could be automated, I said in the briefing room. Shaw shook his head. No, this was manual. Timestamp aligns with Klein's arrest window, which meant whoever controlled the network was watching law enforcement activity in real time. How? I asked. Shaw didn't answer immediately. Because we both understood the implication. Access. Derek breaks. Derek folded fully 3 days later. Victor's arrest shook him harder than mine. They're not freelancers, he told prosecutors. Klein doesn't run day-to-day ops. He connects debt to solutions, but Ghost answers to someone else. Who? Shaw asked. Derek hesitated. I don't know a name. Just a handle. What handle? Sandman. The room went still. Derek continued. Klein said if Ghost failed, Sandman wouldn't. Ice slid through me. So there's hierarchy, Shaw said quietly. Yes, and Sandman, Derek swallowed, he's not Vegas. The second attempt, the threat didn't come through messages this time, it came through proximity. 2 nights later, leaving a controlled media appearance, my security detail rotated vehicles. Standard protocol. But halfway down Tropicana, the SUV behind us didn't rotate when traffic shifted. It stayed distance constant, speed matched. Shaw's voice came through the earpiece. We see it. 2 turns later, the tail stayed locked, then it accelerated, not to ram, to box. The driver of our SUV swerved hard. Metro units converged from 2 directions. The suspect vehicle fled toward the I-15 on-ramp. Short pursuit, precision pit maneuver, driver extracted, male, mid-30s. Clean record, phone wiped, burner, inside his glove compartment, a printed photo of me, recent, not from media, private angle, someone was feeding real-time surveillance. The leak the next morning, Shaw called me in early, he looked tired. We have a problem. The suspect's phone had pinged a tower near Metro headquarters before the pursuit, multiple times. Pre-incident, my stomach tightened. You're saying internal leak. I'm saying possibility. Vegas organized crime isn't rookie territory. Cases this big attract pressure. Pressure creates cracks. Who's cleared on this operation? I asked. Shaw listed names, 7 detectives, 2 cyber analysts, 1 administrative liaison, 9 people, that's all it takes. The name surfaces. Cyber traced the $12,400 wallet transfer. It connected to an offshore exchange known for laundering mid-tier contract payments. Further movement tied it to a server cluster based in Reno, not out of state, but not Vegas core, then a breakthrough, a metadata signature repeated across 3 prior suspected overdose cases. IP fragments tied to a rural ISP outside Pahrump, desert edge, remote, perfect for staging. Sandman might be local after all, Shaw said, or at least using Nevada infrastructure. The call that night, my phone rang, private number, against protocol, I answered. Silence, then a voice, calm, male, unhurried. You disrupted an agreement. My pulse didn't spike. You mispriced it, I replied, a faint chuckle. You staged well, thank you. Pause, you understand this escalates. I leaned against my balcony railing. Send your best, the line went dead. Shaw traced it, spoofed through layered VoIP nodes, but the call confirmed something critical. Sandman wasn't just operational, he was evaluating me. The betrayal. 2 days later, Internal Affairs detained one of the cyber analysts. Name, Caleb Rourke, 32, clean file except for 1 detail. 6 months ago, his brother had defaulted on high-interest crypto loans traced indirectly to Klein's lender network. Rourke had accessed case files repeatedly outside scheduled hours. Tower pings aligned with the suspect vehicle's staging location. Under interrogation, he broke. I wasn't feeding target movement, he insisted, just procedural updates, arrest timing. Warrant status, to who? Shaw demanded. Rourke looked sick. A contact labeled SM, Sandman. He'd been watching through law enforcement, every step, every warrant, every move. The structure. Derek's cooperation expanded the map. Klein facilitator, Ghost contractor, Sandman operations controller, Ghost handled execution, Sandman managed network integrity. Meaning if Ghost was compromised, Sandman protected continuity, which meant I wasn't just revenge risk, I was reputational risk. If word spread that a contract target survived and flipped the table, the network's credibility eroded. In crime markets, reputation is currency. Sandman couldn't afford weakness. The bait becomes Hunter. Shaw proposed relocation again, federal protection, out of state, new identity. I refused. No, I said calmly. He called me. Shaw studied me carefully. That's not victory, that's threat assessment. It's ego, I corrected. Sandman wasn't sending someone immediately. He was testing, probing, measuring whether I'd retreat. I don't retreat, I said. Shaw exhaled slowly. Then we accelerate. The trap. Metro coordinated with FBI Cyber Division quietly. If Sandman relied on internal law enforcement feeds before, that pipeline was gone. So we created a new one, false warrant draft, fake transport schedule, controlled leak through Rourke's known compromised channel. We fed Sandman a narrative. Sophia Reyes scheduled for protective relocation to a federal safe house outside Nevada. Date, time, route. We waited. If Sandman was still monitoring, he'd react. He did. 36 hours later, a crypto escrow wallet lit up. $75,000 deposit. Message fragment intercepted through deep packet monitoring. Final cleanup before transfer. Ghost wasn't done. Desert again. The planned relocation convoy left at dusk, except I wasn't inside. A decoy agent occupied my seat. 2 unmarked vehicles trailed, air support overhead. 20 miles outside city limits, headlights appeared from a ridge road, SUV descending fast, too fast, it rammed the rear decoy vehicle hard. Agents moved instantly, gunfire exchanged, short. Controlled, the attacking SUV disabled, driver apprehended, identity not ghost, not Sandman, mid-level contractor, but in his vehicle, satellite phone. Pre-programmed contact labeled S, and for the first time a partial number traceable to a physical location. Rural property outside Pahrump, registered under a Shell LLC, owner name. Caleb Burke's cousin, the betrayal had tentacles. The Desert House Metro and FBI assembled a quiet task force. No sirens, no press, just warrants and night vision. The Pahrump property sat isolated. Single-story structure, solar panels, 2 outbuildings, perfect for someone who valued signal control and silence. Thermal imaging showed 1 heat signature inside. As agents breached, I watched from command vehicle monitors, clear room by room, then target in custody. They escorted him out, late 40s, unremarkable face, calm eyes, no panic. Just calculation, name, Shaw demanded. The man smiled faintly. You already know, Sandman, the conversation. They allowed me one supervised exchange before transport. We stood across a metal table. He studied me. You cost me clients, he said evenly. You tried to kill me. You were leverage for debt you created. He tilted his head slightly. You think you dismantled something, you disrupted supply chain, demand remains. He wasn't angry, he was analytical. How many? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead he said, you're impressive. That chilled me more than a threat, because admiration from a predator isn't respect, it's assessment. You should have stayed out of the desert, he added softly. I met his gaze. You should have stayed off my laptop. Aftermath: Sandman's arrest sent shockwaves through underground channels. Ghost's identity surfaced 2 days later through device forensics, former EMT turned contract facilitator. Arrested in Arizona, the network cracked, not erased, but exposed. Derek officially signed cooperation agreements, reduced sentence possible. Victor Klein's charges expanded to RICO-level conspiracy. And for the first time since I opened that laptop, I slept without checking the hallway twice. But Vegas doesn't forget, and neither do I. Because dismantling a network doesn't erase the fact that I was almost buried in the desert, it just means I learned how to read the dunes. Vanished in Vegas, the house always testifies. Vegas loves a spectacle. Trials are no different. By the time Derek's court date arrived, media trucks lined the Clark County courthouse like it was a celebrity scandal instead of a conspiracy to murder case. Maybe it was both. Casino host fakes own death to catch husband. That headline alone guaranteed a packed gallery, but beneath the drama the stakes were real, 40 years real. The strategy: Derek's defense team tried to paint him as desperate, not dangerous. He was emotionally unstable, his attorney argued in pretrial motions, financially ruined. Manipulated by criminal intermediaries, manipulated as if he hadn't wired the money himself, as if he hadn't typed make it look like an overdose. As if he hadn't stood at my fake funeral pretending to cry. Prosecutors weren't interested in sympathy. They built the case like a clean poker hand. The crypto transfer trail, the encrypted chats, the escrow confirmations, my life insurance policy, the stage celebration photos, and finally, Derek's own recorded confession. There were no wild cards left. Just exposure. On the stand I didn't want to testify, but I did, because facing him in court was different than walking through that poker room alive. In the courtroom there was no theatrics. No dimmed lights, just fluorescent truth. Derek wouldn't look at me at first. When he finally did, his expression wasn't rage, it was disbelief. Like he still couldn't understand how I'd outplayed him. Mrs. Reyes, the prosecutor began gently, did you believe your husband intended to have you killed? Yes. Why? I swallowed once. Because he paid someone to do it. Soft laughter rippled through the gallery before the judge shut it down. I described finding the wallet, the chats, the words, the planning. And then the most important part, the moment I realized I wasn't scared, the prosecutor paused. What do you mean? I realized he underestimated me. Silence. Even Derek's attorney stopped writing. Cross-examination: defense tried to suggest entrapment. You staged your own death, that's deception. Yes. You manipulated law enforcement. No. I reported a crime. You engineered your husband's downfall. I leaned forward slightly. He hired someone to kill me. The attorney's voice sharpened. You could have left him, I tried, and instead you chose to live. The jury didn't need further explanation. The verdict: 45 minutes, that's all it took. Conspiracy to commit murder. Wire fraud, insurance fraud, guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing happened 3 weeks later. Derek stood in a suit he probably thought made him look sympathetic. The judge didn't buy it. Premeditated betrayal of marital trust combined with calculated financial motive, the judge said firmly. This court sentences you to 40 years. 40. Vegas whispered the number like myth. Derek looked at me once more as bailiffs led him away. Not hatred, not remorse, just shock. He'd gambled, he'd lost. The Klein problem. Victor Klein wasn't done either. From federal detention, he tried negotiating immunity by offering additional names prosecutors already had. He underestimated how deep the digital forensic trail went, but he made one mistake. He attempted to arrange retaliation from custody. The message was intercepted, which added obstruction charges. Victor's sentence climbed quickly after that. When the RICO case concluded, he received 32 years. Ghost, Sandman, Klein, all locked, the network fractured. The media myth Vegas turned me into something exaggerated. The woman who beat death, the queen of the bluff, the widow who wasn't. Strangers asked for photos at restaurants. High rollers requested my table specifically. Some admired me. Some feared me, some wanted to test me, because Vegas players respect one thing, survival, but fame is dangerous in a city built on illusion. I had to make sure the myth didn't swallow the truth. The truth was simpler. I read the table. I moved first. Back to the floor. The first major private game after sentencing was invitation only. $250,000 minimum buy-in, international players. Old money, new tech wealth, one Saudi investor, 2 hedge fund sharks, and a Russian who barely blinked. They requested me personally. Word had spread. The legend was currency now. As I entered the private suite, conversation dipped, then resumed carefully, respectfully. I dealt the first hand, smooth, controlled. A player across the table smiled. Is it true, he asked casually, depends what you heard, that you walked into your own wake? I didn't look up from the cards. I prefer surprise entrances. Laughter, tension eased. But beneath the humor was something else. They weren't just playing poker, they were measuring me just like Sandman had. Vegas never stops measuring. The unexpected visit. 2 months later, something surprising happened. Claire Whitman requested a meeting. Victor Klein's former associate, the woman tied to that old financial laundering layer. She denegotiated a plea deal, reduced sentence in exchange for testimony. We met in a quiet cafe off the strip. No media, no security parade. Just 2 women who had both survived the same men differently. I never expected you to come back, she admitted softly. I never expected to leave, I replied. She nodded slowly. They underestimate women who understand numbers. That line stayed with me because it was true. They'd all underestimated me. Derek, Klein, Sandman. Even Claire once underestimated the ripple effect. Now she was rebuilding quietly, not glamorous, not loud, but alive. Survival looks different on everyone. The offer. 6 months after the trial, my boss called me into his office. You've turned into an asset beyond hosting, he said calmly. I already was, he smiled faintly. Corporate wants to expand private high-security gaming operations, discretion-focused, intelligence-driven, meaning they wanted me to oversee more than tables, they wanted me to oversee risk. Risk assessment, behavioral reads, financial anomalies, patterns. They wanted the woman who dismantled a murder plot watching their highest stakes. I didn't hesitate. I'm in the final showdown. A year after my death, a particular player requested a heads-up game. He wired in 7 figures, no entourage, no chatter, just confidence. As he sat across from me, I noticed something familiar, his betting cadence, measured, detached, calculated. Ever lose big? He asked casually. Only once, I said. What happened? I learned. He studied me carefully. He was Ghost, wasn't Sandman, but he was connected, a remnant of the old network trying to assess vulnerability. Midway through the session, he pushed all in. Bluff, I knew it, I called. He folded slowly after reveal, lost 7 figures. As security escorted him out per protocol, he paused. You think it's over? I met his gaze evenly. It is for you. Vegas isn't about ending threats, it's about managing them, and I'd become very good at that. Epilogue. The legend. It's been 2 years now. Derek remains in federal custody, appeals denied. Sandman's trial sealed most of his operations permanently. Victor's assets liquidated. The desert still stands, red rock still glows at sunset, but I walk differently now, not paranoid, aware. The Bellagio fountains still rise every night in choreographed perfection. And sometimes, when I step onto the private floor and deal the first hand of $1 million game, I hear whispers. She died once, she came back. She doesn't lose. They're wrong about one thing. I lost something, trust, illusion, naivety, but I gained something better, control. So I raise a quiet glass sometimes, not to Derek, not to revenge, but to survival, because in Vegas the house always wins, and this time I am the house. Vanished in Vegas, the last hand 3 years after the night I died, the desert feels different, not softer, just honest. I stand once more at the edge of Red Rock Canyon, watching the sun sink into the same horizon where they plan to erase me. The wind moves quietly across the sand, as if it remembers. Vegas still glows behind me, the lights, the fountains at the Bellagio, the private rooms where fortunes rise and fall in silence, but I don't chase legends anymore. I built something steadier. I now oversee security strategy for the casino's highest stakes operations. Not just cards, risk, patterns, intent. I train hosts how to read danger before it becomes disaster. I consult quietly with law enforcement when something feels off, because survival isn't luck, it's awareness. Derek remains in prison, appeals exhausted, Sandman's network dismantled. Victor Klein forgotten by most, their names faded, mine didn't, but I no longer need the myth. One evening during a quiet private game, a young player asked me, "Is it true you came back from the dead?" I smiled slightly as I dealt the cards. "No," I said calmly. "I just refused to disappear." The room fell silent, then the game continued, because in Vegas the game always continues. And as I push the chips forward and deal the final hand of the night, I realize something simple. They tried to bury me in the desert. Instead, they taught me how to own it. The house doesn't just win, the house survives, and I am still here, spade.